Red Silk Hidden Passwords. I used to say I fell in love with Maya because of the way she pronounced the word dangerous, soft like velvet, a joke she let you in on. She was the sort of woman who could undo a room with a glance and fix it again with a laugh. I was not the jealous type. I designed kitchens for a living, aligned edges, drafted quiet drawers that shut themselves before a slam. If you had asked me what love felt like, I would have said, seamless hinges and warm, clean light. The first time I smelled the red silk, it wasn't on her. It was a scent in the air, distant and sweet, narrowly in something darker, and it floated out of the wardrobe when I reached for a t-shirt. Maya didn't own red silk as far as I knew. She wore cotton tanks and crisply ironed work shirts and the kind of black dress every emergency knows how to find. I stood there with my hand on an old concert tee, breathing in a fragrance that belonged to a story I hadn't been told yet. "You're early," she called from the bathroom. Water hissed. A hair dryer coughed to life. "I thought you had a final with the Brunsons." "Pushed," I said. "What's Velvet Atelier?" There was a pause, the kind that makes a clock louder. "A brand," she said too quickly. "What are you doing snooping?" I held up my hands. "The wardrobe perfumed me. I'm collateral damage." She laughed and the air smoothed out. "You and your detective nose," she said. Later, I ran an errand I didn't need, stopped by a pharmacy to buy batteries and read the labels on candles like a man cheating on his own peace, hunting for that exact note of dark citrus smoke. I didn't find it. I told myself I didn't care. There are markers people point to when they want to prove a marriage has changed. Phones that flip face down, late meetings, jokes that land and don't linger. For me, it started with a password, honeysuckle. It replaced the old one on the tablet we used for movies. Maya said she changed it because security was important, because all the gurus said so. Maybe so. But when I typed it wrong once, twice, and finally got in on the third try, a different home screen waited like a person I'd seen across a room and only now realized I knew. New Notes app. Hidden calculator. One of those that looks innocent and opens into a second world. The icon for an audio recorder sitting too neatly where you couldn't miss it. I listened to nothing. That's what the recordings were. Silence, named like chapters. Tuesday blue, Sunday glass, second breath. If you've ever heard your heartbeat in an MRI, you know how loud a person can be when they're trying not to make a sound. I closed the file and set the tablet down like it might bruise. I didn't accuse her. The days unfolded obediently. We threw a dinner for friends and Maya made steak frite that somehow apologized and flirted at the same time. She wore a delicate necklace I'd never seen before. When I asked, she said she'd bought it from the studio where she was doing breath and core. The instructor's name was Luca. Or maybe she said Looker, because the way she smiled around the word had its own posture. Luca turned out to be a co-founder of a wellness app that promised to make your lungs brave. I found his face on a website. That too sincere stubble, the kindness you practice in a mirror, the ringless hand resting on a rolled yoga mat. "Breathe the truth," the headline said. I closed the page, not because I believed him, but because I wasn't ready to hate him correctly. 3 weeks after the red silk smell and the honeysuckle password and the silence named like secrets, a message appeared on my work phone from an unknown number. "If you want to see what you think you smell, go to Claire's rooftop back corner, the table by the ivy. Don't bring rage. Bring a steady pulse." I deleted it. I told myself that people who meet strangers at rooftops end up as cautionary tales told by bartenders. But an hour later, a second message came, lighter and more dangerous. "I'll order you the drink she doesn't know you like." That was the one that got me, because I didn't know I had a drink she didn't know. The idea that part of me existed outside her map was either a relief or a betrayal. I couldn't tell which one yet. At the rooftop bar, the city looked like it was trying on its jewelry. The hostess recognized nothing about the situation, which was a comfort. Back corner, Ivy. The table was occupied by a woman with hair like nighttime, level eyes, and a blue shirt that didn't need to prove anything. She slid a glass across the table as I arrived. It was an old-fashioned, good rye, proper peel. The first sip found the place behind my ribs where confidence hides. "I'm Ava," she said. "I tried to talk myself out of this. It didn't take." "Who are you to me, Ava?" I asked, because an honest question beats a polite lie every time. Her smile held. "I'm the red silk," she said. "Or rather, I own it. I'm the one who sells it. Velvet Atelier, Luca's client, and unfortunately, his girlfriend until recently." I kept very still. The air above the table thinned. "You're telling me?" "I'm telling you I watched my boyfriend become a man who carries other people's oxygen while stealing his own on the side." She lifted her glass. "And I'm telling you that your wife has a scar on her wrist shaped like a comma, and she pressed it to my sheets one afternoon while Luca took a phone call on the balcony to explain why he was late to class. I'm telling you this because I don't want the story of me to be a woman who knew and stayed quiet." She didn't gloat. She wasn't a villain come to deliver a monologue. She spoke like a person who had put a word down carefully on the table and couldn't pick it back up. I watched my hands as if they belonged to someone else. The ring on my finger gathered the remaining light and grew heavy. "Why tell me?" I asked. "Because I met Maya," she said, and there was no hatred in the way she shaped the name. "She walked into my showroom once before all of this and bought a silk chemise the color of trouble. She was kind to my assistant. She said please. She signed her name with a flourish that tried to laugh. I liked her despite myself. And then last week, when I found a receipt that wasn't mine in Luca's jacket, I came here to look at something pretty before I ruined something else. She walked in with him. She didn't see me. I watched him adjust her necklace and I thought, either I eat this or I share the meal." For a moment I hated every surface near us for being beautiful. The ivy, the skyline, the ring of amber in my glass. I hated my own calm most of all. "What would you have me do?" I asked. "Whatever you do, don't humiliate yourself," she said. "I can't tell you the right revenge. I can only tell you the way it felt the first time Luca told me honesty meant opening. It sounded like permission dressed as wisdom. If she asks for that, ask her for truth first." She paused. "And if you want, I can show you." "Show me what?" "How I knew, how it hides in plain sight." Her fingers brushed the inside of my wrist, not a flirt so much as a map. The Breath app, the recordings, the public calendar with private locations. There are patterns. I followed her because the alternative was going home to a table set for two and a conversation that would end the person I had been. At her showroom, the place that had perfumed my wardrobe by rumor, the lights were dim, as if silk preferred dusk. She moved without theater, taking a box from a shelf, lifting out a slip the color of a pomegranate that had secrets. She didn't ask me to touch it. She set it across the back of a chair, and even the chair had the grace to be quiet. "Look," she said, and opened her phone. "Luca thinks he's careful. He is. He schedules admin blocks that line up with a hotel that charges by the hour. You know the hotel. You know the elevator that opens onto a hallway that smells like somebody else's story. He keeps a voice note for every session because he says it helps him tailor breathing to bodies. He says this and he believes it. I believed it for months." Her hand shook once. She set the phone down. I stood there, a man in a room of red silk and unsent messages, and felt my life frame itself as before and after. "Why are you helping me?" I asked finally. She lifted her head. "Because no one helped me," she said, "and because I don't want to hate her. It's easier not to hate people when they're not a rumor." I went home. Maya was on the couch, tucked under a throw, hair wet. She smelled faintly of narrowly. The television played a show we watch and pretend not to watch. She muted it. All the honest words in the world marched to the edge of my tongue and stopped. "Can we talk?" she said at the same time I did, and there we were, a chorus. "You go," I told her. She took a breath that sounded practiced. "I've been thinking," she said, "about honesty, about what we want versus what we promised because we didn't know all the ways wanting changes shape. This is not an accusation, so please hear me. I think we should open our marriage." I laughed, and it wasn't kind. It wasn't cruel either. It was the sound a man makes when the word he feared arrives dressed in his wife's voice. "You want permission," I said. "I want truth," she said, quick. "I want to be able to say I'm attracted to someone and not let that feeling turn into a lie. I don't want to live a small life because I love you." "You already gave yourself permission," I said, and the way she flinched told me she had come prepared for every response but that one. She was brave in certain ways. She was not yet ready to be brave where the floor might shake. "What do you mean?" she asked. I told her the truth, the way you remove a splinter, cleanly, in one pull, without checking first if it would hurt less to leave it. Luca's name made a shape in the room we both recognized. She tried to argue at first, out of habit, and then she sat very still and let it be real. "I didn't want to be that person," she said into her knees. "And then I was." There are speeches men give in stories like this. Adventure speeches, ultimatums. I had none. My hands folded in my lap as if waiting for instructions from a higher body. "If you want to open something," I said, quiet, "start by opening your mouth and saying the whole thing. Don't hand me philosophy to cover a bruise." She looked up. The mascara under her left eye had practiced its escape and finally succeeded. "Do you hate me?" "I don't," I said, and I heard the relief and the disappointment in my own voice. "But I won't share you." Her shoulders dropped, the way a runner's do at the end of a race she knows she didn't win. We talked long and carefully. This is the part that's rarely dramatic enough for other people. The dividing of books, the tenderness in offering to walk the dog, the way two people who once planned a child can speak about storage units without combusting. When she went to sleep in the guest room, I stood in the doorway watching the shape of her on the mattress and felt a love that was not enough and not any smaller for admitting it. In the weeks that followed, the world did what it does, kept spinning, kept offering small kindnesses that don't care how well you've behaved. Ava sent me a photo of a street market in a city where the light looks expensive and wrote only, "Eat peaches when you can." I wrote back, "I don't know what to do with my hands when I'm not fixing something." She replied, "Hold them open." We didn't fall into each other like a solution. We walked toward something that might be a beginning, then stopped, then walked again. The first time she kissed me, it was in the alley behind her showroom while rain made confessors of the gutters. The kiss was slow, as if she were teaching me the steps to a dance, and my body was a fast learner only when I listened. My palm found the small of her back, her breath braided with mine. If YouTube sent a chaperone, I'd have thanked them. We didn't undress. We learned the art of almost. The way a mouth can hover and make a decision feel like a holiday. The way a hand on a shoulder can be a story that the next chapter has earned. Maya moved out with grace and stubbornness. She left the red silk behind. I didn't throw it away. I folded it carefully into a white box and wrote a note. "This isn't an apology and it isn't a souvenir. It's just a thing that happened." I gave it to a thrift shop that supports a shelter. Let it turn into rent for someone who needs a door more than I need a symbol. I met Luca once, accidentally, outside the studio where truth is taught for a subscription fee. He tried to do the manly apology. Jaw set. eyes bright with a sincerity he believed in. I told him my lungs were not his to teach. He said he hoped I'd find a way to love bigger. I said I hoped he'd find a way to love smaller and make it last. We shook hands and neither of us won. A season turned without asking permission. I learned to cook for one without pretending a second plate would appear. The apartment heard less arguing and more music. Some mornings I woke up to a message from Ava, a photo of silk cut on a table, captioned with a color, sanguine, wild berry, first blush. The names made me smile despite myself. We took long walks that ended on benches where we didn't ruin a kiss by rushing it. Once in the back room of her showroom, I stood behind her and zipped up a dress she was trying before sending it to an actress I'll never meet. The back of her neck tasted like a promise I wasn't ready to cash. She turned, thumb on my lower lip, and we both breathed in as if someone were counting for us. What I learned is not high theory, it's smaller. It fits in a drawer. Attention is a kind of heat, and where you point it makes a room. Maya and I pointed ours at ideas that excused us. Ava points hers at what is in front of her until it stops pretending. I try to do the same. Some nights I still feel the old ache, the one that asks what I could have repaired if only I'd had the right tool. On those nights, I walk past the studio, past the rooftop bar, past the thrift shop where red silk has become someone else's courage, and I let my hands be empty until they believe me. People think eroticism is fireworks. Sometimes it's a door held open and a voice that says, "Take your time." Sometimes it's the weight of a kiss that stops where it should and promises more because it didn't take. The other night, in my kitchen full of quiet drawers, Ava sat on the counter swinging one heel as I chopped herbs. She reached out and caught my wrist. "Dangerous," she whispered in that velvet way, and the word wasn't a joke this time. It was an invitation to be brave without becoming careless. I lifted her hand and pressed it to my chest, and we stood there, not hurrying, not earning anything we couldn't afford. What we had wasn't a hinge or a light bulb. It was a pulse that didn't mind being counted because it wasn't afraid of what came next.